morning and welcome to Morning Movie News. Today, two of the three stories I want to cover involve TV commercials. There are two spots that have been airing just recently for two big summer movies, and I think they're quite revealing. Now, the first is this Amazing Spider-Man 2 TV spot, which I saw last night. I'm not sure when it first started to air because I saw it on a show that I had DVR'd. But the thing that was interesting about it that really caught my eye was that it focused on Gwen Stacy and seemed to heavily foreshadow the death of Gwen Stacy. It had her falling and this really, like almost beauty shot, which is an odd choice for someone as they're about to die. But anyway, it was like a glance shared between her in slow motion and, obviously Peter Parker, where they both know this is it. Captain Stacy was right. We should have listened to him. You're going to die. Is this really going to happen? And so it was, really focused on that, the whole spot. That seemed to be the angle of the spot, almost letting the viewer know we're going to do the death of Gwen Stacy. Now, on the one hand, that's a very interesting reveal that the studio would choose to make. It's something that would happen at the end of the film. It's a very big spoiler for people who aren't necessarily, familiar with the Spider-Man source material. And even though it seems to be a pretty poorly kept secret, I think that you'd still want to try and save as much of the impact as you could for the movie. A lot of us, even though we've seen Emma Stone wearing an outfit that looks very similar to the outfit worn by Gwen Stacy when she dies in the comics, there's still a will they, won't they kind of debate going on, at least I think internally with moviegoers, as to whether or not Stoney will actually kill off Emma Stone, because she has wonderful chemistry, both on screen and off with Andrew Garfield. They're a real life couple, and she's very well liked in the role. She's a great, she still is a damsel in distress to some degree, but she does a nice job at it. She's, very much of an every woman. She's a good superhero girlfriend. Not particularly progressive, but I think is very well realized as the Gwen Stacy role. Certainly the best, I think, Spider-Man female love interest to date, for sure. Now, of course, if you were to kill her off, that would have a huge impact, as it's meant to, as it did in the comics. They kill a character off, don't bring her back. She still has not really come back to this day. They kind of played around a little bit with, I believe, J. Michael Straczynski and having her kids show up with Norman Osborn. I think that's been, taken out of continuity because it was quite controversial when they introduced it. But, it's not like we're not having a Jean Grey situation where they come back, character comes back every once in a while. Elektra, female superheroes or characters that have died and come back. Gwen Stacy, still dead, and still really influential as just Spider-Man's psyche. And it would be interesting to see that play out in the movies. So the question is, I think we've all been wondering, as I said, will they or won't they? Now, to have them tease such a thing in a commercial makes me feel that maybe they won't. And so I think it's a dangerous game to not just leave it alone and be like, oh, okay, we decided against it. And when you are in the film and you're seeing it unfold, you too will agree with our decision. I think to use it as a selling point, saying you're going to see this classic storyline, this storyline that defines Spider-Man. Oh, no, you're not. I mean, so I don't know. I'm torn as to whether or not I want them to foreshadow something that should be a surprise, or am I being teased and they're going to, pull the rug out from under me when I'm watching it. So I'm curious to how you guys feel. What do you think of Sony using that as a selling point? Is it a selling point to you? Do you think it hurts the film to kind of tease something that is going to happen at the end? Do you not want to know if Gwen Stacy is going to die? And if she is, do you think they should do a near miss? Or is that disrespectful to the source material? So that's the first story of the day. But, really, I have to say that. I guess as an ad, it piqued my interest, and I hope it wasn't a giant spoiler. But, it did catch my eye, and I even fast-forward through commercials when I DVR them. And I was like, what's going on here? All right, so that's the first story of the day. The second story of the day, quite a people are talking about this commercial. It was uploaded online. It's Quicksilver for Carl's Jr. eating their morning biscuit. I think it has double the amount of bacon, and so they're kind of advertising both the movie and this delicious breakfast product. I mean, there's a lot of things going on. There's a big battles going on in the breakfast wars in the fast food industry right now. I'm sure you might have heard about Taco Bell going up against Ronald McDonald. Both of them are, taking pot shots at each other. And Carl's Jr. now is like, we have breakfast too. And so huge market. So, I can see why they would want to bring in X-Men Days of Future Past to advertise it. Carl's Jr., big brand, I think particularly on the West Coast of America. But I think that the resulting commercial is going to do more harm than good. As you can see, I'll put a link to it if you actually go to the uploaded version, if they haven't, taken it down or stop you from being able to dislike it. It has a huge number of dislikes because the quality of it is so poor. I'm really surprised they wouldn't just spend a little bit of money to show Quicksilver moving fast. He doesn't move fast in the commercial. He's supposed to be eating this bacon, biscuit really quickly, like Quicksilver would eat it. But you will be like Quicksilver when you taste how delicious it is. That's the gist of the ad. But basically, they just have things moving in slow motion around him while he moves in regular motion while I believe a low-budget fan just blows his hair. It's really so low rent. Considering a multi-million-dollar film that's Fox's big summer bonanza, just to have this be the introduction, to all intents and purposes, is the introduction to many people to this version of Quicksilver. It just seems like such an odd choice. I mean, they basically just have him walking at normal pace. Everything, as I said, is slow motion, which is much easier to do, I guess, than speeding him up. And then have a piece of bacon falling to show the passage of time. And the bacon falling looks like it could have been superimposed on a string. It just really looks like, I think, even someone here on YouTube, a lot of filmmakers here on YouTube, student filmmakers, I think at this point with the technology that we have available to even, the novice filmmaker could do a better job in terms of special effects and selling the character, the movie, and the sandwich. So it's just really unfortunate that this is just another example of Fox not understanding their own product, the fan mentality. I think so many of us are hopeful that they're going to get it right this time, and we see things like this, and we're like, why do you do this to us, Fox? We are trying to root for you because we know you're never going to give this up, so let's just try to all get along. It's like, yeah, you're trying to get along with somebody, and they just keep, poking you. All right, so Sinister Six, that's the third story of the day. They are indeed moving forward with this. It's again part of Sony's advertising for Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like many comic book properties, they are hinting at the next films to come, saying if you want to be ready for those, you have to see this one. They did it for Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier. They said if you want to see the Avengers Age of Ultron, you need to see Captain America 2, which turned out to be somewhat actually true. So I think if you want to be on board the Sinister Six movie, you need to see The Amazing Spider-Man 2. But anyway, the big news yesterday was that Drew Goddard, who is writing the script for that film, will also come on board to direct. I think he's a fantastic choice, and it's very interesting. He's a good choice and an interesting choice. So let's say why he's good. He's a good choice because he did Cabin in the Woods, which, as you might recall, if you've seen the film, focuses on the bad guys. If you haven't seen this movie by now, I think it's fair game for spoilers. I'm not going to give huge spoilers, but if you don't want any spoilers for Cabin in the Woods, you might want to skip to the viewer question. But anyway, they have that break room and those two guys working to control the house. And they're bad guys. And I think that the kind of everyday mentality that Drew Goddard was able to create there that was very funny because it was a great contrast to what they were doing was really great. And I think he's going to need to do that to Sinister Six. And the fact that they brought somebody on board who can do that makes me think that might be the direction they go into. What's the day-to-day life of a supervillain? How do they relate in their own Avengers Clubhouse? I think that could be great. And I think, as I said, he's already explored that to some degree in Cabin in the Woods. So great choice. So why is he an interesting choice? Well, that's because Drew Goddard is so heavily involved in the Marvel Netflix Daredevil show. So this just shows you, again, that Sony and Disney have made peace, and even though they might annoy each other a little bit sometimes, and they're involved in a friendly competition, it's almost like Disney Animation and Pixar. They basically realize they're part of the same brand, and they have to get along, and so for the most part, they will. So to see that Drew Goddard, who is the writer of the Daredevil Netflix pilot and the executive producer, move over to Sony to handle their property, and I don't think that means he can't work on the Netflix show anymore either, is very interesting. He probably won't be able to do it to the same degree because he's doing this movie, but he'll probably stay on board, I imagine, as an executive producer. But it's just interesting to see that now, Marvel, Disney, and Sony are sharing talent as well as, characters from the same brand. So I think that's very interesting. I wonder how you guys feel. What do you think? Are you sad that Spider-Man probably will never go back to Marvel? Or are you happy with the job that Sony's doing with it? I think they're doing a pretty good job. I'm very excited to see this movie. It looks really faithful to the source material. All right, so let's go to the viewer question. This is from Carolina Jatine. And she says, "Hey Grace, love your show." Thank you, Carolina. My day isn't complete without watching every morning. Oh, that means a lot. I really appreciate that. So I have a question. All right, Carolina, let's see what it is. Last year, I was really bummed after watching Blackfish and vowed never to set foot in SeaWorld again. If you're not familiar with Blackfish, it's a very good documentary. You should check it out. It talks about the toll, both mentally and physically, that's taken on these marine animals, particularly killer whales in these aquariums, theme park aquariums like SeaWorld, and it's quite damning. SeaWorld has worked very hard to try and discredit this, but not quite successfully, as Caroline is about to point out. So she says, "Since then, I have met several people who feel the same way, and have also read some news on the impact the movie has had on the park." So yes, Blackfish, as SeaWorld feared, has succeeded in making people realize that, just I think to some degree why people aren't into zoos anymore, for this really kind of the same reason, they feel it's inhumane and not the right way to see animals, or the appropriate way, because it's harmful to them. So Carolina says, I feel that movies have a strong impact on people's political views and can make a difference. But aside from documentaries, I don't see many directors using this for a greater purpose. Do you think Hollywood has the potential to influence politics? If so, will a time come when it effectively uses it? Carolina, yes, this is a really great question and it's very timely. For instance, I think one of the reasons that so many people felt strongly about 12 Years a Slave is because, well, everyone of course was familiar with slavery. 12 Years a Slave, I think, put a face on it, brought about the humanity, and really showed it in an incredibly realistic point of view. And also, what I thought was the most interesting aspect of the film, really did a great job depicting the grayness of the time. That there were free African Americans and there were African Americans who were slaves. They were coexisting. It was a time when there was a very blurred line that was detrimental to everybody. And I think that's very rarely depicted. And so I think that films like that, I guess Oscar contenders do use their influence on society and politics. And they're very, very successful. They do have, I think people do care. So that's one element where I think Hollywood is using it. However, though, I think that recently there was a problem a lot of people had with Wolf of Wall Street, the problem that I had, that it didn't really offer any commentary. Here was a chance to really say something and to maybe, show how horrible Jordan Belfort was, but instead Scorsese decided to step back and just present it and let people walk away, some people thinking it was very favorable, that Jordan Belfort was a favorable person and that nothing he did was wrong. He was actually someone to be admired. So I think that was a problem. There was no perspective. And I think Wolf of Wall Street missed an important opportunity there. And as I said when the movie came out, I felt it was somewhat irresponsible the way it was portrayed. Also, the reason I say this is timely is because we're talking about Godzilla a lot here on this channel. Later today I'm going to post my continuing the discussion I'm having with a number of you about Godzilla, and really that we're kind of torn, the two of us, between what's more important, a successful Godzilla film or a film that honors the cultural origins of a franchise that is one of the top exports or creations from Japan, and whether or not it's okay to Americanize it, whether or not it's right. And again, you have a situation where Legendary was eager to make a lot of money, and so they're trying to optimize something for box office success without thinking about their responsibility on a cultural and social level, and maybe finding a way that they could do both. And so anyway, I'm going to get more into that later today with that video. But anyway, so as you're saying, Carolina, I think Hollywood tries to do it. For instance, Elysium, District 9, Neil Blomkamp is a very political filmmaker. Matt Damon also is a very political movie star. He's involved personally in politics. And, his film Promised Land about the water, fracking, that was also a really great film and was really important. So these movies, they are being made. Some of them get noticed, some of them don't. But as long as you even influence a few people, I think that's really great. And I think that every movie should operate ideally on a couple of levels. Not only a business level for box office, but it would be great if it was to some degree socially responsible and had a message. I mean, these are all important things, and I think if you take any screenwriting class, they will highlight that that's what's supposed to happen. So thank you for your question, Carolina. Everybody should check out Blackfish. And I wish that SeaWorld, hopefully it will influence SeaWorld in a positive way, and they will take into account the problems that have been pointed out in this documentary and maybe try and fix it, and so everybody can win. That's the thing. At the end of the day, we want a scenario where everybody wins, and I think it's important. Hollywood, I think sometimes they don't want to get into a political argument because they don't want to turn people off, but I think if you keep a positive viewpoint and you're upbeat and you're not trying to argue with people or have a lot of hate in what you're saying, I think that overall eventually you'll reach people. And so I think if movies are made with good intentions, that they will eventually win out. So thank you for your question, Carolina. I hope you liked the answer. I hope it was what you had in mind, or interesting. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Write down below what you think of today's top 3 stories, the viewer question, anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching, and you can check out some more episodes right now.